there, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, September 6th. We're here to talk about my Friday reads. And it's been a great reading week so far. It's been a great week so far. Yesterday was my birthday. I had a fantastic time. I didn't post a video yesterday, but today we're back to talk about the books that I have read this week. And I've only finished 2 books. I'm in the process of reading 2 more books. And I have lots of books on my TBR because this month, if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I'm trying to read 30 books in 30 days. So far, not going so great. I've only finished 2 books. It's day 6, but I'm on track to finish maybe a 3rd book today. And I'm in the process of reading another big book. So in the next few days, I'm going to be reading a lot, trying to complete some more things. But it's been a busy week, but a great reading week. So let's talk about the books because that's what we're here for. The first book that I finished this week is William Golding's Rites of Passage, which is the 1980 Booker Prize winning novel. And this book has been on my TBR for weeks, months, maybe all year. I finally read it. And the language in this book, the prose, is very tedious to read, at least in the beginning, because it is written in almost Old English, as the main character and narrator is trying to imitate a Shakespearean kind of atmosphere. But the last 30 pages or so are so engrossing that I found myself flying through the pages. This book should probably be read in one sitting because it takes a while to get used to the writing style. And if you're constantly moving back and forth between this and say some contemporary fiction and having to readjust every time to the style of writing here, then it will take some time to just kind of get immersed in the story again. But that's kind of what I did, and it worked, even though it felt a little tedious at times. But the story is so captivating. The plot takes place aboard a Navy ship leaving England on its way to Australia, and the main character is a young gentleman named Edmund Talbot, who has been offered a position in the government in Australia. And he's promised his godfather back in England that he will record his adventures going there. So he starts this journal, and so this book is mostly epistolary form. For the most part, we're reading Edmund's journal. And because he is a young gentleman born in privilege and very prejudiced towards other social classes, and we're reading mostly from his perspective, and the other characters come alive through his eyes, the reader is invited to also be as prejudiced as this main character and narrator. However, based on your understanding of life and relationships between groups, how you feel about this narrator will be colored by your own perspective. And so it's very interesting. There's also a lot of discussion about class and the very different representations of society. And aboard this ship, the fact that they're all sequestered aboard this ship for a long time, and the environment is working on them, you know, they have to deal with bouts of seasickness and enduring storms and so on. And the people who are more experienced, even though they are of lower social classes, according to Edmund Talbot, they are also in a superior position just because they're sailors, they're Navy men, and the rules of the Navy are in place aboard the ship. And the author uses these characters to personify the different aspects of society and how they relate with each other. And so we get interactions between different social classes, but also between civilians and military, and how religious leaders and religion in general, how it is viewed by the others. You'll hear more about this book when I do my full review. Of course, you know I'm reading and reviewing all the books that have won the Man Booker Prize. So since this is a 1980 winner, this will come up pretty soon, and you'll hear me talk about it in way more detail. But for now, I finished this one. This one was 278 pages. It felt more like 400 pages just because of the writing style. So it took me a while to read, but I finally finished. And then I read The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay, which I have heard fantastic things about, and I wanted to leave room to dive into this book when I knew that I'd have time to just kind of read it in one go. And I did read this book in a little bit over a day, and I'm still not sure how to explain how I feel about this book because, man, I hated the ending. But that's a common theme for me. That's common in that I love a book until the end. Not that I could see it ending any other way. I think Madhuri Vijay did a fantastic job with presenting this story. And the way it ended is completely representative of what you should expect while you read this book. This is set in India. Main character is Shalini. She's 24 years old for most of the novel, and she's just left college. Right before her graduation, right before her exams, her mother died. The fact that she'd grown up in a very close relationship with her mother, she's devastated by the loss of her mother, and her father encourages her to find a life, find her own life now that her mother has died. Instead of trying to find a future, Shalini starts to fixate on the past, the glory days of the times that she spent with her mother, and this man who was in the life that she shared with her mother. He entered their lives as a vendor, but became friendly with the family. And Shalini decides to go to find him. His name is Bashir Ahmed, and he is from the other part of India. And so through this book, we get to look at the different parts of India. Shalini is from Bangalore, and this man, Bashir Ahmed, is from Kashmir, which if you're familiar with the politics of India, you'll know that Kashmir is this conflict area, conflict between India and Pakistan about ownership and about the resources and about the people themselves, who they should be loyal to, who owns the rights to Kashmir. Shalini and her family are Hindu, Bashir Ahmed and his family are Muslim, and of course this sets up the conflict between religions, not just political states. And the exploration of this story and the exploration of those politics and conflicts provides a fantastic backdrop for this story. But because we're reading through Shalini's eyes and seeing the world through her limited vision, the fact that she's only 24 years old and she thinks she understands the world in ways that she just can't and hasn't because of her position of privilege and the life that she has led. It is interesting, it is engrossing, but it's also so frustrating to read as we go back and forth between her present experience and she flashes back to show us herself growing up and show her coming of age story and the mistakes that she's made and how her parents have protected her. And so you're expecting, you know that she's also expecting to be protected even as she becomes an adult. And so this is a fantastic debut. Madhuri Vijay, this is her first book. This is her picture. And this was a fantastic read. I read it in a little bit over a day. And I can't wait for the next thing that Madhuri Vijay writes. I love books that are set in India, and I'm learning so much about the history of India through these novels that I've been reading this year. And this one was a fantastic read. So those are the two books that I finished this week. Now to books that I'm in the process of reading. The first is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. This is the story of America's Great Migration. Isabel Wilkerson is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and this book is compiled from interviews that she has had over probably many years. She said countless thousands of hours of interviewing people and doing research for this book, and it shows. This book is a fantastic narrative of the lives of African Americans who left the South and moved to the North for the warmth of other suns. I love the title, the fact that she acknowledges that it comes from the writing of Richard Wright, and she acknowledges the contributions of other African American writers who have chronicled the Black experience, focusing probably more on the end of the story when these people had moved and they had become their own people in the North. But here she tracks them. She starts with the lives that they were living in the South and some of the motivations that they had for leaving the South, and what life was like as they traveled, what life was like as they settled in these new world experiences that they had in the North. and the challenges that followed them there, even though they were no longer subject to Jim Crow laws. What are some of the other things that were hurdles that they had to overcome? I'm almost 100 pages in. I'm doing a buddy read of this one with Doris from Aldi Books, Heidi from My Reading Life, and Patrice Jones from Awesome Subscriber. And we're reading about 20 pages a day, but I'm not quite following that 20 page a day schedule because the book is in parts. And so I'm at page 95 right now, which you'll see is at the end of a chapter. And so even though I should technically go up to page 100, I'll go to page 100 when I continue in that next chapter. This is a really big book. It is about 550 pages of text. It's presented in biography format, which makes it easy and appealing to get through. So I'm loving reading this book right now, and we'll probably be reading this all month. The next book that I started, and I started this one this morning, is the V.S. Naipaul's Miguel Street. And I know I just showed this to you in my book haul a couple of days ago, but in talking about it in my book haul, I just felt like I didn't really want to shelve it. I just wanted to read it right now. And I read this one as a teenager. Rereading it now is bringing back the memories and the discussions about this book, but I'm happy to reread it because it's like familiar writing that you just want to get back into, kind of slip into like an old shoe. Miguel Street is a collection of vignettes, observations that this young boy who lives on Miguel Street is making about his neighbors. And as each story, each vignette progresses, you meet more and more of his neighbors and get into their lives. He's a very nosy young man, but he's also just an observant resident, and he's introducing his neighbors to you through his perspective. Because he's a child, he's probably having limited interactions with his neighbors, and so he's sharing with you from his own observations, but probably also what he has overheard other adults saying. There's also the reported public projection of these people's lives onto the wider community, because epics from their lives get reported in newspapers and even form the foundation of the lyrics for popular calypso songs that are used in carnival and recorded in American recording studios. And so even though this narrator at first seems like he's living on this almost remote, isolated street in Trinidad, you see the connection between where he lives and the wider community. And so that is fascinating to read about. I'm loving reading this book. This is a book that I'll probably finish today. I'm flying through it as it is. I only stopped to make this video and then I have to leave. So V.S. Naipaul's Miguel Street, that is the other book that I have on the go right now. I have a lot of other books on my TBR, but I've mentioned them in my TBR videos. So if you want to know what I'm going to be reading for the rest of the month, I'll link my TBR video down below. You can go check it out and tell me if you see a book there that you want to hear me talk about in my next Friday reads. I'll bump it up and read it soon. So those are the 2 books that I just finished, 2 books that I'm continuing right now, and I have a whole host of other books ahead of me because, you know, this month I'm trying to read 30 books in 30 days. So far not going so great, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Over the weekend, I'm going to be posting my reading vlog for this week. Thanks for watching this video. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let's talk in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. If you've read any of these books and want to talk about them, or if hearing me talk about them today made you want to pick them up, I'd love to hear that as well. So also, let me know in the comments what you've been reading this week. If you have a BookTube channel and you make a Friday Reads video, link it down below so I can go watch it. Otherwise, let me know what's the best book that you've read so far this week. Undoubtedly, well, actually, that's not true. Not necessarily undoubtedly. I love this book, and I really enjoyed reading this book. So we're going to say it's a tie. 2 books tied. But I'd love to hear from you. So let's talk in the comments, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.